It's Dan here, and today I'm going to be talking about Sword Song by Bernard Cornwell. This is the fourth book in the Last Kingdom series, which is historical fiction set in Anglo-Saxon England during the reign of King Alfred. Now, I'm assuming if you're watching this review that you know a little bit about the series and the main protagonist, Uhtred. But if you don't, I've done reviews of the previous books and like an introduction video to the series, so I'll put the links to them in the description. So in this book, Uhtred has finally started to gain a bit of trust from King Alfred, who is his lord and the King of Wessex, which is the last surviving Anglo-Saxon kingdom that hasn't fallen to the sort of invading Northmen, like Danes, Vikings. He calls them a bunch of different things. Now, initially, we see that Uhtred has been tasked with building a new fortification on the River Thames by Alfred, which kind of shows the newfound trust that he's got in him. And early on in the book, news soon reaches Uhtred that Haston, one of his many enemies from the past, has been receiving prophecies from a dead man. And these prophecies include that Uhtred is going to become the King of Mercia, which is like a war-torn kingdom to the north of Wessex that borders it. And it's like a constant battleground between the Saxons and the Northmen. So, intrigued by this, Uhtred travels to meet Haston, goes to see this pagan magic for himself. He's convinced by it, and then travels to London with Haston to meet up with Sigurfrid and Eric Thurgilson, who are these two Danish warlords. So that's really about as far as I can go into the plot without giving away any major spoilers. That's kind of the inciting incident, the setup. So, is it any good? Well, if you've seen the other videos, you'll know how I feel about this series, and yeah, it's good. It's a great continuation of the series. We see like a more mature and controlled Uhtred in this series. His primary motivation is still to reclaim his ancestral lands in Bevenberg in the north of what will become England. But as he's sort of happier with his role in Alfred's kingdom and the trust that Alfred's showing in him, and also as he's more content with his family life as well for the first time, this sort of takes more of a backseat in this book. His desire for fame and for reputation as a warrior is as strong as ever, but he's learning to control his temper and to deal with people in a less sort of brash, arrogant way in order to achieve his desired outcomes. But this doesn't mean that he's completely in control, however, and some of the more intelligent characters, like Alfred and Ethelfled in particular, and also Haston to some extent, are still able to manipulate him for their own ends. And there is kind of a sense that Uhtred, in hindsight, respects this. He respects their intelligence, especially with regard to Alfred. Well, and Ethelfled, in fact. Uhtred's central character conflict remains the fact that, although he fights on the side of the Saxons, he feels more respect, even love, for his enemies, the Northmen, as he was raised by the Vikings when he was younger. And Cornwell does a really good job of providing both sides with characters that you dislike and also characters that you can respect. So you've got two really nuanced sides to this conflict. Like Eric Thurgilson, for example, is a really good antagonist in this respect. He's thoughtful and fair and honourable, and he's a good foil for his brother Sigurfrid, who's kind of pretty savage, as in your sort of more stereotypical Viking way. But he's still more honest and straightforward than many of Uhtred's supposed allies, like his cousin Ethelred, who's the most powerful Saxon nobleman in Mercia, or Erkenwald, who is Alfred's candidate for being the Bishop of London. And Uhtred's loyalty is put to the test by this character conflict more than anything else. And in the book, he kind of frames it in terms of fate again, like versus oaths. You know, in Uhtred's eyes, everyone is bound by this inexorable fate that is woven for them by the gods. But people bind themselves to each other by oaths in order to exert some sort of control over their own fate. So, you know, if someone breaks an oath, as, you know, Uhtred considers on many occasions in this book, is that due to their own personal lack of honour, or were they fated to break that oath by the gods? And I think his true feelings about this, you know, no matter what he really says, are shown through his relationship with Haston. You know, Haston swore an oath to serve Uhtred a few books ago in the series, and then broke it, earning Uhtred's enmity. But, you know, deep down, Uhtred believes, or seems to believe, in the power of oaths to bind him. You know, he always sticks to his oath to Alfred and his oath to Ethelfled. But at the same time, he understands that there's always going to be conflict because, as he says at one point, you know, like, war is fate and fate is inexorable. Or inescapable. Fate is inescapable, yeah. So anyway, yeah, there you go. Just a quick one because I've already done reviews of a few books in this series. If this book sounds good to you, I definitely recommend checking them out and checking out the rest of the books in this series anyway, because it's a really fantastic historical adventure series. And that's it from me, so bye, I suppose.